I was getting everything all set up, letting my water boil. Um, well, not boil, come to temperature. Not using boiled water. My ears are so plugged because some of you know I've been following the morning teas. I've been I fought off that strep throat, but then it's like, all right, you chase this out of your throat. We're gonna turn into a sinus infection, and so right now I'm like do this to your ears. That's what it sounds like for me right now. It's crazy, like I'm underwater. So, but I don't have to hear anybody besides myself. We'll be all right. Um, I'm gonna make that nogiri. I always say it wrong. Platinum needle again, and this time I'm gonna be. I always put the wrong lid on there. I'm gonna be slightly sacrilegious again, and put some dried white nectarines in there because it just sounds good. And I like to rip up my dried fruit because there's still some moisture on the inside, right? And if you rip up your fruit, it just gives it more surface to extract flavor from. Um, so yeah, today's gonna be a good day, even though I can't really hear anything. um, because today I am going to officially plant things from inside of my little greenhouse inside to my outside greenhouse outside. And that's always, I'm looking forward to it. It's happening. It's happening. They need to go out. And it's very cold here still, but I'll be planting out cold weather stuff. You know, I've got kale going out, spinach, chard, and then some like super cold weather lettuce. And you know, if anything decides it doesn't want to survive, I can replant it because some of that stuff grows pretty fast, you know. So yeah, I'm excited about that today because that also means if I get these flats out of this little greenhouse that's sitting right here, um, I have room to start other things, which is important because I'm kind of like slightly behind planting what I should have going in March, but that's okay. And I think they'll be fine in the greenhouse. I'm also going to move all of my onion starts out to the greenhouse today. They'll still be under a little dome in the greenhouse, but maybe not if we keep getting up into the 50-degree weather range. But yeah, I also am thinking about potatoes. I have my potatoes chitting out in the greenhouse under direct light. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I like to have a smaller, more compact eye than a big string that breaks off easy, right? And that just, you want to do that before you plant them, although some people say it doesn't matter, right? But I want to be in control of how many eyes I have on there because if you leave too many eyes on there, you get tons of little potatoes versus a bunch of really well formed ones. But anyhow, I'm going to make myself wait at least another week. Now, most people don't plant. I'm in zone 5A technically, but really I'm more cold than that. That's just the closest town rating I get, right? But most people wait until like maybe April to plant potatoes out. But I'm going to do the pot method this year, and I'm going to do them really deep in the pot. I'm not gonna bury them, wait for them to come up, and then bury them again, wait for them to come up, and you know the hilling thing. I'm just gonna bury them, and they'll work their way up. Um, you know, and I watched a video this winter in the depths of it. This guy, he grew 450 pounds of potatoes with um, just like it was like 50 10-gallon pots. And I have that. And I'm like, it sounds like a lot of potatoes, but if you're a big family and you know, you wouldn't be surprised how fast you can go through that amount of potatoes if you're not buying them from the store and you're doing more than just making mashed potatoes, right? Like, I love french fries. I just don't eat them unless I make them really because you know the oils they tend to cook them in are nasty and all that kind of stuff. But I'm excited about it and watching the weather and I'm ready for my outside to transform from the mud pit that it is into gardens and there was like a year or so where the outside just got away from me. You know, when you're on a farm, it's so easy for that to happen. And when you're tired and you're sick, and you're busy running like a, almost broke my little teapot. And you're tired and you're sick and you're busy running, a business and kids and life, it's super easy to not have the energy to work on outside. So this is the year that we remedy that. I'm starting to feel, even though I'm sick right now, I still feel better. That's saying something. I feel better now with a sinus infection in my ears than I did a month ago before I discovered like my need for like huge amounts of vitamin A compared to the average person and way more vitamin K and of course the scurvy from being a pirate. But it's crazy. Like I have more energy now that while I'm sick than I did a month ago. So, if your house gets away from you, if your yard gets away from you, if your farm gets away from you, don't beat yourself up about it. We're human, and sometimes we just, especially if we're female humans, and we have children and stuff, and we don't live in the type of world anymore where like all we have to do is focus on the house and things like that. So if things get away from you, don't feel bad about it. When you start feeling better, you can slowly make momentum in getting things back to how you want them. And I am actually kind of glad because I didn't really like the setup that we had in the beginning, like when we made it, like I didn't really like the beds the way they were, like the garden beds. I didn't really like, I don't know. And the good thing is all of like the invasive grass that they planted is like dead. I mean DEAD. It is, and I mean like some people use that Bermuda grass stuff, and the stuff that stuff really sucks because instead of spreading by seed, it spreads under the ground, and so you can never keep it out of your garden beds. Well, I let the goats take care of that for me over last year, and just not being able to function well. So that plus clay has just got it all gone. But I'm excited. This Friday, I invested in a wood chipper and that's supposed to show up. I tried to do the chip drop thing. I posted all over looking for arborists that would drop off their excess wood chips for free because they usually have to pay to dump them. It's been a month and a half and I've gotten no bites. And so I was like, fuck. So I invested in a decent wood chipper because I have a bunch of poplar trees that I need to take down. I have a bunch of trees that need to be trimmed up. I have no shortage of trees on my property that need to be limbed from the bottom up for fire prevention and just kind of moving things around. And there's some trees that I need to take down that are negatively shading the garden and like they're not really healthy, so I'm just gonna drop them and buck them up for firewood and then use all the limbs for wood chips because I'm gonna do like a hybrid version of the back to Eden method. I see a lot of people argue in the garden realms about back to Eden method, and the one thing that I don't like about the back to Eden method crowd is that they got to understand that the guy who made the method lives in a temperate, like always moist, semi rainforest area where his stuff like will compost and rot really fast. But if you live somewhere where it's like really dry in the summertime and like crazy cold in the wintertime, can really negatively impact your ability to compost underneath or compost those wood chips, right? So I'm doing kind of a hybrid thing where and I know he talks about using compost with his anyways, but like I'm doing like the lasagna layer method with like tons of like organic matter, compost from my cows, all kinds of stuff. And then I'm gonna do thick wood chips on the top. I cannot solely rely on the wood chips to break down into soil because the wood chips I make after I get my wood chipper will probably exist for many years before they break down into soil. But I am excited because I'm also planting a bunch of mushrooms in all of my new beds that I'm making. So the mycelium will help break that down and it will be no-till, but I just kind of have to, and so for the mushrooms I'm doing oyster mushrooms and wine cap. I have a lot of poplar trees to take down around here. Oyster mushrooms love to grow on poplar trees. Some people call them cottonwoods. Some people call them, I think they're kind of like aspens, they're different, but they like that soft type of wood, right? So I'm going to chip those up, and those will be the main covering on my one really big bed that will have decent shade in the morning. Not decent for other plants, but for mushrooms. And then I put down the spawn down on top of probably some straw, and then I'll put the wood chips over top, right? And so it'll spread through there, and I'll have oyster mushrooms pop up in the shady areas of my garden. Um, but yeah, yeah, some people can't hear that. I have tried every time I try to get a hold of YouTube about it. They're like, sorry, error for a request. Like when I try to get a hold of, like, send an email or get a hold of them on live chat or anything like that. Um, I got my mushroom spawn from North Spore. I like the work they do. I like the videos they have. I like that. I don't know. They're not really. I feel like they're real humans. I know everybody's a real human, but you know what I mean. And they have really helpful videos, and not a lot of places want to do that because they're afraid that if they show you how to do something, that you won't purchase from them. But I don't get that impression from them at all. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to get gardening. So, and then all kinds of stuff. I'm thinking about outside. Today it's so sunny outside right now. It's so beautiful, and you're like, yes, but it's lies. It's like 10 degrees out there, and that's why it's so cold, because there's no cloud cover, right? And so, but it'll warm up. Yesterday, so my greenhouse has hydraulic windows on the top of it that when it gets hot enough, the hydraulic oil expands and it pops the window open, right? It opened yesterday because it got so hot in there. And for those of you, that were watching on Instagram, where I planted a bunch of red clover seed along the path, I'm happy to say that they are popping up. So we're gonna have a lot of red clover down the middle of that greenhouse, and I'll let Clover grow wherever she wants. She doesn't get tall enough to push out any plants. She's really good ground cover. She keeps weeds down if they try to show up, anything invasive that isn't beneficial in that area. And she's a nitrogen fixture, so she's going to constantly be putting nitrogen back into the soil. Now, the one thing to know about nitrogen fixing is that it takes time. Like, a lot of people don't realize that for the first year that you're growing like peas or like clover or something like that, that puts a lot of nitrogen, it doesn't really put it right in, but eventually it unlocks. It takes about a year after you grow it. But I'm just randomly talking about garden stuff, but I'm happy about it. I'm really, really happy about being able to garden. And I see my admin in there, which is my youngest offspring. She's doing a great job. Um, and yeah, it's been really, really good. Yeah, there's still snow on the ground here that's slowly melting. Like right alongside the greenhouse, and I'm just in cognitive dissonance. I'm like, I don't see that. I don't see any of that. But no, I'm excited to get started, and I didn't garden last year at all. And like finding the balance between like fear gardening and like gardening because you enjoy it is probably important too. But I'm really excited about it, and I think I need it too. But gardening is really healthy and healing. Sometimes you like, so I live with a lot of like no food resource trauma, right? Like personally and culturally, right? And so like it's really easy to be scared about not having enough food, Anybody who's genuinely experienced like poverty or hunger or homelessness, like food is constantly on your mind, right? And so I worked for years to like walk through that trauma and away from it. Like I would have like tons of food, like I would like prepping on like a real level, right? But then it's like I never ate it. And that's a super common response, like, because if you eat it, then you don't have it, right? And even if you don't realize that you're got an itch, even if you don't realize that you're not acting that way, it happens a lot. And so sometimes when I would grow gardens, especially once 2020 hit, because uh, any work I did on my trauma went away, right? When the world exploded, right? It was really common for people to have a lot of setbacks in that time of our lives. But when you garden, when you're like, oh, I have to grow this much because I have this many people I have to feed, and it's some like huge amount, and like you're doing it by yourself, there's no longer any joy in it. And it's one of the reasons that I walked away from gardening last year, because I just didn't have it in me. But I also um, needed that step back, right? That back into like, so I'm excited this year because I feel like I'm coming at it from more of a place of joy than I am a place of fear, right? Um, yeah, it is, I don't know. I know a lot of people feel like they lost a lot of time, and we did. Like, we collectively were like, whoa, it's 2024. What happened? The kids feel it, the adults feel it. Like, I started this all when I'm 30, and now I'm almost 40, and I don't understand. Right? But yeah, I am looking forward to it, and I'm also only growing things that we eat, right? Not that that sounds weird, but if you think about how you're going to plan your garden, if you're just buying starts, or if you haven't started your seed yet, depending on what zone you're in, think about the food that you actively purchase, and that's what you grow. I'm not saying that you can't have, like, we don't really purchase and buy eggplants to eat because we don't really live in an area like that where they're tasty at all if you buy them. So I'm only going to grow 2 eggplants. And if we end up liking them and eating them and using them on a regular basis, next year I'll grow more. But mainly I'm just focusing on a lot of cold weather stuff for some reason. I know it's because it's spring. I know it's because it's spring and that's what I can plant out. But I also just have this big feeling that I need to be growing a lot of cold weather stuff. Like, I feel it in my chest, and so I'm just doing that. So I've got lots of kale, collards, spinach, chard, broccoli, that kind of stuff. And I found, I think they were from Planting from Justice. I think that's who I got it from. They have a lot of unique perennials, so they come back again and again on like an annual. And they had some Michigan kale or collard. I don't remember which one. I had to look. It's either kale or collards, but it's living and surviving in Michigan winters. And we get really cold here, but we're not quite the same because we don't have that lake effect situation going on. But we get really cold, and I'm like, man, if it can survive in Michigan, it can survive in my greenhouse in Northeast Oregon throughout the winter. And so I like that. What I'm not sure of, and I might have to plant it in a pot, because if I plant it outside here, I mean, it might survive, but I don't want it to just survive. I want it to continue to grow. So what I might do, and I'm just thinking out loud, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to plant it in the ground, and it's going to get really big, and I'm going to take starts off of it. I'll take starts off of her, and I'll get those rooted, and I'll pot her up. That way I can have some that will also go into the greenhouse in the wintertime, right? Because they can't survive in there in the summer. It'll be too hot. That greenhouse will be like, even with doors open and fans on, because we hit like 110, 115 here. Um, but like, I think that way I can see, like, okay, so maybe the one outside, she just survives, but the one that I take into the greenhouse, she might continue growing. And I also plan on probably doing greenhouse rabbits this winter, where they have their own little like enclosure, and I catch their compost, but also the heat from their bodies and the heat from their compost will naturally help keep the greenhouse warmer on the inside. So anyhow, somebody said that they are just buying a house and they feel intimidated by a garden. Look at remember what I said. Look at what you eat, at what you buy, and just grow that. And you don't have to try to have like a huge garden right off the bat. Get a feel for it, like maybe do like no more than like 4 or 5 of any one plant, and you'll still be overflowing. You probably don't need 5 zucchini plants unless you have a lot of people to feed and share that zucchini with. But so I'm pretty interested in that. I think people are talking about pests in the gardening, um, but I have the people who owned this house before us, and they actually built the house, so there's nobody else that's ever lived here besides us, in the house anyhow. And at some point, they planted oregano. At some point, they planted an oregano plant. And like mints like to do, there is now, if the world ends, my job is oregano farmer. Because that's all, she's everywhere. You can go 40 acres up, because we're on 40 acres here and it's on a hill, so it's up. You can go to the tip top, there's a patch of oregano growing. There's probably oregano on the neighbor's land and they don't even know that it's oregano, right? She is everywhere because not only will she spread from roots, but her seeds blow in the wind. And so, wherever I plant, there is oregano. And oregano, I mean, she keeps bugs away because they don't like the smell of her, right? So oregano, oregano, oregano. And she just went just crazy. I remember when we first started walking around the property looking at it, I was like, is that, what, who are you? Right? I was like, you look like a mint, but, and then I roll it between my fingers. I'm like, is that oregano? And then I was like, and then suddenly it's like when you see that first mushroom in the wild that you're harvesting and then you get your mushroom eyes and you can see all the mushrooms. It happened with oregano. I'm like, oh my God, we're surrounded by oregano. uh, yeah. And so she'll just take over. So I don't really have issues with pests here. Slugs a little bit, but I actually think that the wood chips that we're putting down, they won't be able, because I don't know if you know this, and here's a random slug fact. This is all gardening tea talk morning. um, Slugs have to follow like their trail. Like the snails too, they put down like a slime trail, right? Like they die without it, right? So if you have wood chips in your garden and there's like wood chips everywhere, they can't. It it sucks the moisture out of them. They can't lay a trail down, and so they have a really hard time like slugging their way across wood chips, you know. And we do have some ducks. I don't know about letting ducks in the garden. I've done it before, and I guess we didn't have any slugs, but people like to pretend like ducks won't hurt plants because they're not like chickens. I disagree. I even had appleyard ducks, but maybe if you only let them in for like half an hour and then chased them out. But who has? I don't have time for that. I like to monitor the duck doings. um, but yeah. So I'm just, I don't know. I am ready to garden. I laid about it, or laid there last night thinking about it to go to sleep. You know, I don't know if anybody else does that. You think about things like scenarios or how something would work, or that's just how my brain functions. I might be weird, but I was thinking just about the garden and what would go here and what would go there and how it would look over here, and it 90% of the time I don't actually do what I lay there and think about. But if I even get a quarter of it done, that's fine. I also put up a listing for looking for a new milk goat, so I'm excited to add another doe. Somebody said tried to order tinctures from you yesterday. That order did not go through, but the book order did. What do I do now? I love having tea time with. It must not have been in your cart if it didn't go through, but you can reach out to my customer service for the shop, which is just my husband, and he will help you out. Speaking of the shop, if you do want to support my capacity to randomly jabber, and thank you so much, Tammy Flores, for the super. If you do want to help support me randomly jabber and have these tea times and teach freely, like with my up and coming turkey tail mushroom tea and decoction video that I'll release this Saturday, and the shorts that I'll release this evening that tell you individual herbs and all kinds of information, consider becoming a member to my channel. That's a super easy way to throw me a few bucks every month, and you get early access to videos. If you can't afford to become a member, don't worry, it will become public on Saturday, so it's just a little bit of time. You don't have to pay to see the things I post, right? But you could also follow the link in my bio or in the description, probably in the comment section, actually. That's usually where I pin it once this has been uploaded as a video, to head on over to my apothecary, where I make all kinds of synergism capsules. You know, I'm using real herbs. I've got my mouth mud. I've got my pit goop. I've got books, a lot of books that I have written. And I have a special code, Tea Time, just like it sounds, one word, TEATIME. It's a one-time use code for anybody who's watching, for 10% off anything you would like to call home from the shop, just as a way to say thank you. All of that stuff really, really supports my capacity to be here, to afford the tea, to pay for the internet, you know, to do things in the garden and just generally be a human with you. So I'm really, really grateful for it. And that ends my shameless commercial. You know. But anyhow, and if you ever reach out to customer service, it's just me and my husband. There's no, like, he does customer service, I do all the other stuff, but there's no other, we're not some big, it's just us. And every time you shop, not only are you supporting, like, my capacity to teach freely, but, like, a real family. Like, we're not some big faceless corporation, you know. But yeah, somebody says pit goop is amazing if you're menopause and stinky. Yeah, I love pit goop. It's such a weird selling point to be like, if you already stink, you can even put it on then. But how many times are we like, even if you don't forget to put deodorant on, something really stressful happened, or it's really hot out and you're just drenching buckets, eventually, even though you remember to put deodorant on, you end up stinking. And if you try to put your deodorant on again, you just smell like armpit plus whatever fragrance. It doesn't actually get rid of it. But my pit goop, I actually use this really cool castor bean extract that actually surrounds the smell on a molecular level. It's really, really amazing stuff. And so, of course, there's other things in there like little bits of sulfur that kill the bacteria on contact, but the castor extract literally traps the stink. So you can be like really, really ripe and put it on and you won't stink anymore. I've even had to, on occasion, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have another jacket and I don't have time. I'll take my jacket, I'll flip it inside out, and I'll put the pit goop over the armpit section where it stinks, you know? Because I might not stink, but the jacket does, and I'm shit out of luck because that's all I have right now. And it takes the smell away. It doesn't care if it's on human skin or on fabric. It works really well. But anyhow, right now I don't have any of my face creams. I do plan to do some this month, and I am, drumroll, working on getting help to make them in big amounts, because it takes me like so many days and hours like of nonstop work in the apothecary to make like 1,200 bottles, and then I'll post them, and then that'll last for like, most of them are gone within the day or two, and that's awesome. That's an amazing problem to have, but it also makes, I can't, because I'm a human with a human body, I can't keep up. So I finally do have, I'm working on help. I'm working on help to make those, and whenever I get help, it's always within the U.S. Like, it's always a facility within the United States. I'm not like outsourcing, and these facilities, um, they have to meet a lot of standards and things like that. You know, they have to, like, I'm not just picking anyone who will take me up. Like, I work with Beehive Botanicals to do my herbal synergism capsules. I love working with them. It's my formula, it's my recipe, it's my directions. It's just their big equipment that they can do what takes me weeks in like a 2-hour run. Right? And so one day maybe I'll get there, but today is not that day. um, Somebody said, messaged customer service yesterday. Have hubby contact me, please. Yeah, so it can take us a day or two to get back to people, you know, and so, because, you know, it is just the two of us. But if you messaged yesterday, I suspect he'll get back to you today. We don't answer on weekends, and sometimes it depends on when you message. Like, if he got done doing all this customer service in the morning, or, you know, and then you message late afternoon, he probably won't get back to you until the next day. And sometimes crazy things just happen, and it takes us a day or two to get back to customer service. But anyhow, I don't know. I'm excited for gardening today. I'm excited for tea time. I'm excited for the sunshine that's out my window. I'm excited to have a good day. And I really, really enjoy um, spending my mornings with you before I get about my day. It's just a nice way to like get things out of my head. And I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's almost like journaling, but out loud is what it feels like. And it helps me process things and just be a human. And I hope it helps you process things too, you know, or just consider things or just, I don't know, feel less alone, you know, anything like that. I'm grateful that it does on both directions. So, thank you so much for joining me for my morning tea. And I will actually, I'll see you this evening when I post a little short. I've decided to do those in the evenings. I feel like they collide, they like fight. If I post this and then I instantly post a short, I think the algorithm's like, so I'm going to post it in the evening. But I will see you also tomorrow morning for my live tea. So have a great day, folks, and I'll see you later. Bye.